on tonight's UAP News Show.
UAPs and Havana Syndrome. What does Lue Elizondo know?
Did Tim Burchett say that he's a reptilian?
Matthew Pine says there's going to be some major things happening in the next few months.
A new UK crop circle sighting?
And Steven Spielberg's upcoming UFO film, The Dish.
Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie, and we are back at it again for another episode of UAP Society's weekly UAP and UFO news show. I am stoked to get started, so without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Greetings, cosmic enthusiasts. It's Justin here. Let's dive right in. UAPs and Havana Syndrome. What does Lue Elizondo know? A tweet from Dale says, "New report reveals Havana Syndrome case numbers. More than 300 American spies, active duty military, FBI agents, diplomats, and at least 15 children are among the 334 Americans who have qualified to get treatment for Havana Syndrome in specialized military health facilities." So, what does Havana Syndrome have to do with UAPs, you might ask? To learn more, let's watch this clip, and keep in mind that what you're about to see is older content from 2023, but completely relevant to the story.
Did the Havana Syndrome give one government employee remote viewing abilities and other psychic abilities? Well, that's what Lue Elizondo is indicating in this recent tweet, and this is kind of potentially a huge story. Well, there's new information, and there's a new book coming out, and Lue Elizondo is basically corroborating it from the tenor of this tweet. He says, "I'm aware of all the facts regarding this true story, and to call it a bombshell story would be an understatement. Buckle up." Okay, Lou, I am buckled. Are you buckled? Get in here. Let's talk about it. All right, here we go. This is the article that Lou linked to. Simon & Schuster imprint wins bidding war for twist-filled memoir by U.S. intelligence officer tangled up in mysterious military program. Okay, all right. Well, Lou is tangled up in a mysterious military program. He knows all about that. Simon & Schuster imprint Gallery Books has won a bidding war for North American publishing rights to a twist-filled true story rooted in intrigue surrounding a U.S. Air Force program. The log line for the memoir by Scott Andrews takes some time to unpack, but it's a doozy. Andrews is a former senior U.S. soldier and decorated intelligence officer who conducted global counterterrorism operations, much like Lou, perhaps, on behalf of the United States during a 36-year military career. So did Lou know this guy? Is that why he's, corroborating this story and vetting this guy's story? I don't know, but they both worked in counterintelligence for the military, so that's intriguing. Shortly after returning from an overseas mission, he began to suffer from rare, life-threatening ailments that defied medical explanation. Sounds a lot like the Havana Syndrome, right? Which many people think are energy weapons targeted at certain U.S. personnel. Rather than succumbing, he instead began to experience special, inexplicable abilities such as remote viewing, and his body began to heal, baffling doctors. So remote viewing and also healing. In the last couple of years, I have learned healing, energy healing, and I know that that is indeed a thing. And I also know from studying many, many, many alien abductions that sometimes the beings will teach people how to heal, how to do energy healing, hands-on healing. And that is something that aliens teach people how to do. That's something that higher dimensional beings teach people how to do as well. If you study near-death experiences, you will encounter that. People will have near-death experiences and they will come back with various abilities very frequently, including hands-on healing and also psychic abilities and other things as well. And, that goes, extends to Chris Bledsoe as well, who interacted with a cosmic being, the lady, who may or may not be the goddess Hathor. That is the Chris Bledsoe story. And if you're not familiar with the Chris Bledsoe story, which, people like Lue Elizondo and many others take very seriously, well, it's a fascinating story where this ordinary man, in as much as anybody is ordinary, but, he wasn't a super spy or anything like that, or a guru sitting on a mountain. Well, he interacted with this being known as the Lady, and who may or may not be the goddess Hathor from ancient Egypt. And anyway, after this experience, or a series of experiences still ongoing to this day, check out his book, UFO of God. Well, he developed a very powerful ability to heal. And so this is just a thing. Aliens teach it. higher beings and near-death experiences teach it, or you come back with this ability. Cosmic deities teach it. And apparently you can get it from energy weapons? What? Going on, as he sought more information about his health, Andrews came across a file compiled for him by his late father. It contained records from a past he did not remember, including documents indicating he was removed from school for weeks every year, from the 1st through the 12th grades. Interesting. The record also contained a shocker that he received an honorable discharge from the U.S. Air Force and worked in space intelligence communications as a minor. As a minor. Andrews maintains he has no memory of having served in the U.S. Air Force. What?
MK
What?
Ultra much?
Referred to a classified White House National Security Council program, which had been delegated to the Department of Defense. Andrews then met a man who ran the highly classified program, who introduced him to a doctor. The doctor had worked for the CIA and had experience enabling him to help Andrews start to piece together what has happened to him and others like him. Soon after connecting with the doctor, Andrews says he experienced symptoms associated with the Havana Syndrome, a phenomenon first reported by military personnel working in the U.S. Embassy in Havana, Cuba in 2016. The syndrome has generated significant media attention in top-tier outlets, including 60 Minutes and the New York Times, in recent years. An investigation went on to determine that Andrews had been targeted with an advanced energy weapon. But yeah, so Lue Elizondo seems to be vetting this story of mind wipes and energy healing and remote viewing that may or may not be related to the Havana Syndrome and energy weapon attacks.
Red Panda Koala says, Lou, do you think Havana Syndrome is related to UAP? Sounds like a tip, slide 9.
First of all, a profoundly relevant question. One that I'm not prepared to answer right now. I'm thinking in my mind right now the number of individuals that would be breathing down my neck if I could go into that. There's some very interesting peculiarities. I am not qualified to discuss the nuances of Havana Syndrome. I think we are still trying to figure that out. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Cat got your tongue, Lou? Seems like he didn't want to answer that question. He was like, yeah. About that, I can't say shit. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so from this perspective, side effects of Havana Syndrome are positive things, like the ability to remote view and gain an increase in clairvoyant abilities. And Lou backs this up. He like basically put that certified stamp of approval on it when he tweeted what he tweeted. And I think it's really interesting that the things that Jack from Cosmic Road said in that video are reminiscent to the things that UFO Jesus was saying in the story that we did last week called Lue Elizondo's Imminent Book Leak. And the things that they had in common is talking about telepathy, remote viewing, and gaining psychic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've spoken to plenty of people over on my other channel that have either had NDEs themselves or that research and write books about NDEs. And they have all basically said the same thing, that many of their gifts came on board after they died, went beyond the veil, and came back to tell the story. We have also spoken to ET channelers and people that do energy healing like Reiki. So if you are interested in any of those topics, head over to the Hello Alley YouTube channel, link in the video description box below, and scroll through the chats. There's a whole plethora of things that you can choose from. But yeah, so this is talking about gaining healing abilities, remote viewing, psychic abilities. What's your thoughts on all this?
Well, I think the jury's still out. I don't think we know definitively one way or the other yet. Okay. Exactly what Havana Syndrome is, other than it's most likely a directed energy weapon, that somebody is using, and I think it stands to make a distinction between people that have legitimate UAP encounters that do end up with some sort of, clairvoyant ability, versus the people that, get hit with the energy weapon.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think it's important to maintain that separation there, even though they're closely related, and they have a lot of similarities. I think they are two different things.
Okay, well, that's the whole point of this
Mhm.
story, is to present the two different sides and then allow you guys, the
Yeah.
audience, to determine, which you think is the actual correct one. So there's also an opposing side to this story that rings a totally different bell and has a totally different tune. One that doesn't involve an increase in gifts and abilities, but rather a decline in health, an increase in pain and suffering, and a multitude of ongoing problems.
In this next clip, we hear from those that feel they were targeted, the reporter who broke this story back in 2016, and Thomas Winterton of Skinwalker Ranch. You don't want to miss this.
Well, the syndrome was first identified in Cuba's capital city in 2016 when U.S. diplomats complained of dizziness, headaches, and a painful sound in their ears. U.S. officials have previously said it's unlikely a foreign power is to blame. Well, let's speak now to news reporter Steve Dorsey, who broke the story of the syndrome affecting U.S. personnel in Cuba in 2016 for CBS and has covered developments since. Steve, good to have you with us. Named for the Cuban capital, where it was first reported, but this has cropped up in various other locations as well, hasn't it?
Absolutely. We've been hearing over the years of cases spreading throughout China, originating first in Guangzhou. We've been reporting on at least one case in Uzbekistan. Now we're hearing from 60 Minutes and other reporters that there have been cases in Ukraine, in Germany, and now the Pentagon and the White House confirming that last year at a NATO summit, a senior DoD official, a Pentagon official, had similar symptoms as this purported Havana Syndrome, which the federal government here in the U.S. is now calling anomalous health incidents. That's a evolution of what were first described as health attacks by the U.S. State Department. So far, though, not much more information publicly revealed by the Biden administration.
So we've heard about some of the symptoms, earaches, headaches, nosebleeds, and this has been all attributed to some kind of so-called directed energy attack. What could be causing this?
Well, listen, there's been a lot of research over the years, studies done by universities, by the National Institutes of Health, by academic journals, theorizing what could be behind these strange constellations of injuries and symptoms, everything from what we're hearing is a directed energy device, which 60 Minutes has described as something that could be like a secret sonic weapon that is perhaps developed by a secret military intelligence unit of Russia. Or it could be microwave signals aimed at U.S. diplomatic personnel, but also undercover intelligence officers in Cuba and elsewhere around the world, other officers working for different parts of the government, including the FBI. Or listen, we've heard much other skepticism of this, including from Cuba itself, saying that it had no involvement in this. It could have been loud crickets at the time, or it could have been in the imagination of all these folks that claim they have things as severe as mild traumatic brain injury, which was, according to some victims, noted in scans of their brains.
Strange reports of physical attacks have been recorded at Skinwalker Ranch in recent years. Thomas Winterton, the ranch's superintendent, suffered a head injury that landed him in the hospital that he believes was caused by an unexplained energy attack.
I noticed that I had a goose egg on the back of my head. The pain is so excruciating. I've never felt anything like it before in my life.
And one of the things that struck me about Thomas's case, his injuries were consistent with a radiation beam that entered his body from a specific angle of attack back behind his head.
So that paints a totally different picture from the first scenario that we presented to you guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like one side is saying, like, you get remote viewing and psychic abilities and the ability to heal. And then the other side is saying you get pain, nausea, dizziness, vertigo, and you're never the same.
A tweet from Thomas Winterton back in 2021 says, "Because my head injury happened during the same time period with similar symptoms and injuries, any articles regarding the Havana Syndrome always catch my attention." And speaking of head injuries, brain scans, and UAPs, let's close the story with the relevant highlights of a 2021 article called "Stanford Professor Gary Nolan is Analyzing Anomalous Materials from UFO Crashes" that says, "Did the people who claimed that they had an encounter, especially the pilots, describe any perceivable decrease in neurological capacity?" And his answer was, of the 100 or so patients that we looked at, about a quarter of them died from their injuries. The majority of these patients had symptomology that's basically identical to what is now called Havana Syndrome. We think amongst this bucket list of cases, we had the first Havana Syndrome patients. Once this turned into a national security problem with the Havana Syndrome, I was locked out of all of the access to the files because it's now a serious potential international incident if they ever figured out who's been doing it. That still left individuals who had seen UAPs. They didn't have Havana Syndrome. They had a smorgasbord of other symptoms. The next question, how does the impact of electromagnetic frequencies factor into your hypothesis about what exactly transpired here? And his answer was, with one of the patients, it happened on the Skinwalker Ranch. Given how deep into their brain the damage went, we can actually estimate the amount of energy required in the electromagnetic wave someone aimed at them. We don't think that it has anything to do with UAPs. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that article was basically Gary Nolan being interviewed about the studies that him and the doctor that you saw in the 60 Minutes clip from Stanford University is doing. Stanford University is doing studies on people that have traumatic brain injuries related to Havana Syndrome, potentially related to UAPs, but no one's really sure. And the thing that I'm confused about is that I feel like there's two different conversations that are happening kind of, but like underneath the same umbrella. I feel like we're talking about symptoms of directed energy weapons on one hand, and then like the repercussions of being in close proximity to UAPs on the other. Are we talking about two different things here? Or are we talking about the same thing? Like, no, I'm kind of confused.
No, I think we're definitely talking about two different things, especially if you take the people that are at the embassy, you know, or at some other location, like inside of a building, like that first lady in the FBI said. You know, she was just sitting in front of a window and all of a sudden had a really loud ringing and piercing sound in her ear, right? You know, so to me, that seems like she got hit with some kind of directed energy weapon. Now, if you take some of the cases that Dr. Nolan was studying, you know, those are from pilots that clearly said that they saw this UAP and then had symptoms. I think those people really do have, you know, interactions with UAP, and there's medical proof showing that their interaction with whatever this is had an effect on them.
But isn't this all falling under the same umbrella of Havana Syndrome?
It is, because I think people that have interactions with UAP, they have symptomology of Havana Syndrome. However, that's only classified as Havana Syndrome because it's the closest diagnosis that they have for all the symptoms of those people.
See, now what you just said makes sense to me, especially because I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which for those of you who don't know is a chronic pain condition, which means that my nerves do too much, basically. Like they're constantly sending signals to my brain that I'm in pain and there's no real cause for that pain. But basically the way you diagnose fibromyalgia is you get a bunch of blood tests done, you do this, you do that, whatever. And when everything comes back normal, but you still have this condition, you still have this pain, they're like, okay, well, you have fibromyalgia. And to me, it's like kind of like a catch-all. And it sounds like Havana Syndrome is kind of the same thing. It's like, well, these people have these symptoms and we don't really know where it's coming from or why or how to cure it or get rid of it. So we're just going to call it this. Was that a good analogy, or am I reaching too far?
No.
Okay.
I think you're spot on.
Okay. So yeah, this is all very, very interesting to me.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait until Lue's book comes out on the 20th to see if he wrote about Havana Syndrome or any of the symptoms, you know, related to when people have encounters with UAP.
Same.
You know, I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope he spilled some tea.
Right,
a little bit.
Because he sure as shit didn't say nothing on the Christina Gomez show. He was like,
yeah, you know, why is the secrecy there? You know,
I don't know.
What about Havana Syndrome has everybody so mum on it? You know,
I don't know.
unless
sure, to be honest.
I don't know. It's interesting to think about. You know,
very.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think? How is Havana Syndrome and UAPs related, if at all? I mean, if at all. Why do you think Lue Elizondo didn't want to comment on that notion? What do you think of the more than 300 Americans that have qualified to get treatment for Havana Syndrome in specialized military health facilities? Is this the effect of directed energy weapons, being in close proximity to a UAP, or something else entirely? Are humans behind all this, or NHI involved? I have a lot of questions. Can you tell? What do you guys think? Let us know in the comment section below. Next on the docket, did Tim Burchett say that he's a reptilian?
What?
Let's find out. In response to someone on Twitter asking him, "Why is your eyes slanted?" Tim replied, "I'm reptilian?" ? So yes, he did say that, but it was in a joking, sarcastic kind of way. Or was it? The rumor of shape-shifting reptilians ruling the earth isn't something new and has been expressed on many different platforms. For example, Netflix has a show called Inside Job that did an episode called The Lizard People Conspiracy covering this concept. Let's take a peek.
Everything they teach you in school is a lie. You want the truth? The world is controlled by shadowy elites and shape-shifting lizard people.
Reagan, you're the life of this party. That's the most natural smile I've ever seen out of Mark Zuckerberg.
So the song Shake It Off was about how I shed my skin every 1,000 years. And the song Bad Blood was about how I drink blood out of my Grammys.
A toast to blood.
Save some blood for Paul Rudd.
I gave you my kidney.
And it was delicious. Reagan, meet my favorite reptoid sensitives, Barb Shrike and Zarthax Griswold Walton of the Reptoid High Council.
Good evening, your lizardness.
Oh, we're not that important. It's not like we control the world.
That is such a funny show.
It really is. There was a whole scene I had to cut out because it was not appropriate.
Too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just not appropriate.
Yeah. The ridiculousness is off the charts, but it's comical. It's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what?
And you know how they say that like the elites or the overlords or whatever are getting away with things, but really they're telling us because they slip it into the media, they slip it into movies, they slip it into songs, they slip it into TV shows.
Yeah.
And don't you think it's a pun on a pun that they just did that in that show? Like,
right. Yeah.
It's like a multi-layered thing here.
Yeah. It's like, what if this show is their way of telling us the truth without telling us the truth?
That's what I'm saying.
Who knows?
To gain even more perspective on this idea, in the next clip, we're going to hear the TMZ team discuss Dr. Michael Masters' crypto-terrestrial hypothesis. And then in a clip from Vetted, we'll hear from Dr. Masters himself answer a question that we posed to him. And thank you again, Patrick, for making sure to ask that on our behalf.
Yep.
Have you ever heard of crypto-terrestrials? Everybody talks about aliens coming from space and then disappearing. What if they're actually living among us?
Right, so that's the fear. The UAP conversation, people are making arguments to say, should the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis be included in the conversation?
According to a new Harvard study, aliens might be living among us, right here on Earth, disguised as humans. They're called crypto-terrestrials. They're highly advanced, incredibly deceptive, and capable of hiding in plain sight.
Is it the woman who's sitting next to you on the train, or is it the guy who comes over to fix your cable, or are they prominent public figures? That is the thought.
I love this.
So, type number one, that the aliens have been around for a long time, but they had this super civilization that was destroyed by a flood, but remnants are still around.
Atlantis has always been the big one. That has been the one that everybody talked about, was this incredibly advanced civilization, and no one can figure out where it is.
There's a second idea of there's a complex civilization, but it's like an animal alien. There's a third one that there's hidden aliens, maybe they're underground. And then the last one is the other category, or the magical category, that they're sprites or fairies or goblins or this kind of thing. So you got 4 categories.
I wouldn't say this paper is necessarily a research paper, but to understand it, it's a speculative piece. And the people who are involved in it are just trying to expand the horizons of thought and academic, discussion.
They're presenting it to debunk it.
No. Even they said they had no evidence that there are aliens walking among us. They made that very clear, but the media comes in and twists it around and joking about it so this news reporter hears an alien, ha, ha, ha. Think about it. Every major paradigm shift of science, pretty much in history, has first been met with derision, right? And people mocking it, and then even sometimes being put to death.
I mean, it really is true. The idea that the world was round was absurd to people.
I'm willing to entertain that there is a possibility that they're alien among us, but I just don't think it would be in either of those 4 formats. It's more likely that they might look like us, sound like us, and we don't know that they are not us.
Most people, if you actually looked at what's coming out in Congress and the videos and all that stuff, we have to agree the UAP/UFO phenomena is real.
If there really is that kind of intelligent life out there that could come here, what are they gaining from being part of us without us knowing?
I do wonder with this if this was like what came first, the chicken or the egg, because there have been conspiracies about this for so long, like lizard people, skinwalkers, like things that are non-human that walk among us that we don't see. So is this an attempt to try to anchor the conversation in the hypothetical of if this were really happening, where are they? Why are they here?
If I was like really gonna crank the numbers out, I would say it would be something that happened way, way long ago. Only because, I mean, if you're looking at the age of the galaxy, which is roughly 13 billion years old, and Earth is like 4-ish, that's a pretty big window. I think if anything was to exist, it already did.
The biggest joke of all would be if I was sent here to observe you guys.
I think that's probably it.
We've already talked about that.
Yeah.
Okay, last question,
Sorry,
and then we're done here. Ali asks, what are his anticipations, predictions regarding the future of humanity? I think it's, I guess, a general question there.
Yeah.
I like that you put anticipations. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's sort of some valence to that, positive valence.
I love that you picked up on
Which,
that.
God, yeah, if I had $1 for every time that's come up over the last few months, I've had some really in-depth conversations about that very question with some very interesting people. I don't know. I'm optimistic about the human future. If this theory is correct, humans persist. What happens between
That's a good
now
point.
and then? Yeah.
That's a
Doesn't
great
mean
point.
all of us do. It doesn't mean all of us do. There could still be nuclear war. There still could be cataclysms. There could be a lot that happens. And I got into this in case study 13 of my second book. Arguably, my entire third book is about this very thing. And I can't help but think a lot of that storyline came from things that I have learned and or think about related to the question your listener asked. What was their name again? I'm sorry.
Ali.
What Ali asked. Yeah, it's a fantastic question. It's the one that consumes most of my thought train most of the time, and is a very important question.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Can't help but cheese after hearing Dr. Michael Masters say my question was a good one.
Yes.
Just
and that's actually a little bit of my famous question that I always ask our guests on the other channel.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Yep.
So anyway, that was thank you, Patrick, for asking
huge
Dr.
shout out
Masters
for
that
that.
question for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if, in case you're just like not familiar with who Dr. Michael Masters is, he's actually a professor of biological anthropology at Montana Technological University. Excuse me. His current research program centers on hominin evolutionary anatomy, human variation, archaeology, biomedicine, and investigating the UFO phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
So while we started off this show or this story with kind of like a joke with the whole Tim Burchett being a reptilian thing,
right.
I tried to full circle it back around with something serious like the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, because I just love that people are talking about it. I mean, the whole point of those three guys putting that paper together was to expand the conversation. Exactly. And now look, it's getting a platform like TMZ.
Yeah.
Hello.
I always love to listen to those chats that the TMZ people have.
Yeah. Shout out to whoever puts together that strange and suspicious show. Like I really enjoy it. So
yeah,
I didn't mean to
really
cut you
enjoy
off,
it too. That's all I'm saying is that I enjoy it.
Okay. Sorry.
So what do you guys think? What's your opinion on some people possibly being reptilians disguised as humans? We covered that exact question on like 2 or 3 news episodes ago. So if you haven't seen that one, I recommend you go back and watch it.
Yeah, the thumbnail says, "Are aliens among us?"
Yeah. So, are they being disguised as humans, or maybe they are human bodies, but with reptilian souls?
Who knows?
Who knows? So what are your thoughts on this paper? Who do you think might be an alien hiding among us? Is it your teacher? Is it your... I don't know who else.
I mean, it could be anybody. It could be your neighbor. It could be the guy at the gas station.
Is it your boss?
Selling you.
Who knows?
I mean, it could be literally anybody.
Right.
We don't know.
Maybe it's your dentist.
Oh gosh, dentists are scary enough as it is. I don't know if I could handle a reptilian dentist.
Yeah, right.
Whoa.
Anyway, let us know in the comment section below on what you think about all this. Up next, Matthew Pine says there's going to be some major things happening in the next few months. Yes, that's big.
Okay, just prepare yourselves. This story, we're going to throw a lot at you, but it's all going to conjoin at some point. Like, just put your thinking caps on. We're about to do the death board with the pins and the string. Okay, just hang on. Brace yourselves.
All right. In case you're just like the rest of us and had never heard of Matthew Pines before, he is the Director of Intelligence at Sentinel-1 and a National Security Fellow at the Bitcoin Policy Institute. In this clip, him and the host of the show called What Bitcoin Did discuss the implications of extraterrestrial technology and his predictions of how the rest of 2024 will play out. And it's a lot to consider. And I would also like to add that just listening to him and just hearing how he speaks and his mannerisms, I definitely think that this guy is a part of the CIA or has something to do with the intelligence community.
Okay.
And I found what he says to be very credible, in my opinion.
And just to piggyback on that real quick, I don't think any of us knew who Matthew Pines was.
Yeah,
when he showed up on the scene, everybody was sitting there like, "Who the hell is this guy?"
I never
pulling
heard
out
of
their
him
phones,
before.
like trying to Google who he was. But yeah, he like Justin said, he the way he says things, it's in such a matter of fact kind of way. It's like this is what's happening. This thing is going to come out.
Right.
The people are going to react this way. Then that's going to cause this. Ba 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 ba. We'll just let you see.
Right. And there's in the beginning part of the interview, they talk about some of the nation's nuclear plans and secrets, and it really seemed like he knew what those plans are, but he couldn't talk about them. Just hearing him speak about those topics as well really makes me think that this guy probably knows what's going on. Anyway, we'll let you guys make your own mind up. Let us know what you think.
So we're in this position now where coming into the summer, there's going to be some major things happening. So the objective essentially of the things that are going to happen the rest of this year is to get as close to the full package that's in the UAPDA passed, right? So that the next president will essentially preside over the nominations and then review the declassification and disclosure determinations of the review board. Only the president will have essentially the final veto, right, over those determinations. The review board has to provide like a UAP disclosure campaign plan. And there's all these, restrictions on like what the agencies, if they say that we don't want this to be declassified, there have to be like specific reasons published. So there's a lot of stakes coming on like this bill that's going to be, now reintroduced as part of the FY25 NDAA. And that will likely, come to a similar sort of contention in conference committee later this year, probably November, December, where behind closed doors will be a debate about how much of this package will actually make it into law. Because the NDAA is one of those bills that always gets passed, right? And so this is the fight that's happening now. And so there's going to be a wave of public discourse that's going to start next month in August that is designed to generate such momentum to push the UAPDA across the line. So in particular, what's going to start this will be a book that's coming out by a gentleman named Lue Elizondo, who was kind of the original guy, started this all in 2017, helped get those videos out to the New York Times. He was a guy who he's a career, absolute boss inside the Pentagon. He was a member of what's called the Intelligence Support Activity, kind of like Delta Force, but would go behind enemy lines to like scout things out. He counterintelligence officer, counterterrorism officer, did a bunch of stuff. And it was tapped basically to run the sort of this UFO program inside the Pentagon in 2008. And so he's coming up with this tell-all book, basically, called Imminent in
title.
In August. Then there's going to be 2 documentaries coming out with people that no one's heard of yet that are going to make pretty eye-opening claims, and that those people will have the credentials to back those claims up.
Can you say what those claims are?
I mean, basically that everything David Grush said in testimony is true.
So
right?
that they've retrieved craft.
Yes.
And that they've found like biological.
Yeah.
beings.
Essentially what the UAP says, which is that there are these legacy programs to retrieve and exploit, reverse engineer technologies of unknown origin and biological materials. Those programs exist. Like the Senate legislation is premised on those programs existing. The purpose is to investigate those programs and to force the information and records and materials that they hold into a more formal and legitimate and accountable process, and then to disclose certain elements of those programs to the public. I think they want to do it.
And is there anything new that like Grush didn't say that he's going to reveal?
So this is all about, again, Grush. I don't think the job is to say anything new. It's to get more senior people to say basically the same thing.
What do you think biological materials means?
Bodies of non-human entities.
Aliens.
I don't know what you mean by aliens, but a biological creature
that didn't
of a morphology that we don't recognize as being associated with any sort of phylogenetic tree.
It came from another planet.
Crypto-terrestrial?
Or has it been here forever?
There's other hypotheses.
Yeah, it's been here forever.
So, but the objective this year, just to make it more practical, is to have more and more senior people come out, essentially saying that, ratifying those core statements, right? Not going any further than that, and then trying to hold the line to then trigger a formal process. Because what the folks pushing for disclosure don't want is what they call catastrophic disclosure, which is the sort of uncontrolled spilling of all the stuff associated with this topic. If everyone all of a sudden went from thinking this isn't true to thinking it is true, well, you could have disruptive social effects.
Yeah.
So the objective is to increase the number of people that think this is true by a few percentage points every few months. They want to try to ensure that there can be a necessary recognition of the core truth. The existence of non-human intelligence is not government information. It's a fact of reality, right? The government can't classify the existence of the moon, right? The existence of non-human intelligence is not a government piece of information. It's just a state of the world.
Yeah.
The capabilities of the U.S. military, to do things with certain aerospace platforms is government information that they definitely need to protect.
Yeah.
And so that would mean that the apparatus of secrecy, the compartments, the engineers, the whole structure that the Senate is trying to, get better accountability of, and then to disclose in a controlled fashion, those are like conjoined twins.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the folks that have been managing those alleged legacy programs have no interest in making that easy, right? They have every interest in basically saying, these are so conjoined, you cannot disclose really anything about this basic NHI fact of, and without fundamentally compromising, our national strategic advantage from maybe having inspired certain systems as a result. So that's like the objective this year, sort of get this bill passed. That's probably like the sole thing. And I think it's recognition of the pro-disclosure folks that have firsthand knowledge of these programs and want this to come out is coming forward in a controlled way. So I expect senior people to come out. The ratchet was kind of like David Grush, the first guy, Carl Nell coming out validating that. He validated it before in the initial article, but he just kind of came hard to the paint and said it just straight out. And people would just, and there was like an investors conference, like, what did that guy just say? Like, what? So Lue Elizondo's book, in fact, I read the first few chapters already. The full book hasn't come out. It's gonna be a wild book, I'll tell you that.
What's it called?
It's called Imminent.
Oh, the Imminent book. Okay.
Yeah, and so, but then that's going to trigger these documentaries, other people, and then I believe the coup de grace will be coming sometime this year with someone that everyone would recognize if they watch, if they paid attention to the news, you would know this person.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Boom. Wow.
That was a doozy of an interview. It was. Yeah, there was a lot of information there. I think it's important to point out that he used terms like design and
this
the
is
objective of this year.
Yes. That's what I was talking about.
That goes right that goes right along with what Lue Elizondo has always told us since he's come onto this, scene. And, he's always said that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, that disclosure is a process that's going to happen step by step by step.
Step by step indicates that there's a plan somewhere that somebody's got written down on their desk that says, first we need to do this, then Lue's book's going to come out, then this guy's going to say this, then this documentary. It's like, Wow, and we're literally living through it right now,
Yeah,
you
we
guys.
are.
Like, we're on the freaking chessboard as this
Uh-huh.
game's playing out. Isn't that fucking nuts?
Yeah. It is. It's pretty cool though too, you know. I mean,
Yes.
it makes me think of that. Okay, it makes me think of that meme that I saw. It was during the pandemic, and it was getting close to the end of the pandemic, and it was a meme that had a bunch of little gray aliens on there, and
Uh-huh.
it said, "OF, we're next." You know.
Oh gosh.
I don't know. It was pretty funny. If we can find it, we'll put it up here. But
Okay.
I don't know. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. You know, this is quite a time to be living in.
Definitely.
You know.
Now, Matthew mentioned a lot of things.
Mhm.
And I personally happen to be a visual learner and need to see things in order to like retain them. Okay. So I cooked up something special that I originally intended. The intention of this was just to have it for me because like I said, I'm a visual learner. I need to see things. I like little lists. I like different colors. Anyways, but after I put this thing together, I was like, yo, this is too good to keep to myself. Like,
Yeah.
I have to share this with you guys. I already showed it to a few folks on the vetted server during one of the after parties. And they all ate it up. So I was like, ooh, okay, I'm excited. Okay. So hear me out. Just give me a second. Let me get this cooked up for you guys. All right. So here we go. What you're looking at is a calendar for the rest of 2024. And this particular window is the 2024 knowns. So these are the things that we have dates for. They're on the calendar. They're set to go. Let's go over them. So first up, July's over. That's done. Here we are in August. We're recording this on August 3rd. It'll probably be out the 4th. Anyways, irrelevant. So on August 20th, Lue Elizondo's book, Imminent, The Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, will be released. As you guys know, some of it's already been leaked. People have been anticipating this. It's definitely already stirring up conversations.
Mhm.
And I can't imagine that when the whole thing is released, it doesn't do that, but on an even bigger level.
Yeah, and we recommend that you go pre-order the book.
Yeah, you can even get a signed copy if you want to.
Mhm.
All right, moving on to September. So September 22nd is when the fall begins. And the reason why that is relevant is because that's when we're supposed to be getting the new UAP hearings, according to what Representative Anna Paulina said. She said once the fall hits, we're going to be getting new hearings. So there you go. September 22nd, fall begins. Hopefully sometime after that, we'll hear about some hearings.
Mhm.
After that, in October, on October 18th, is the UAP record release deadline from last year's UAPDA that Danny Sheehan said everybody should be counting down for. Can you go into a little bit detail of what is supposed to be coming through? Do you know that?
Yeah, so last year, what did end up getting passed out of the UAPDA for last year was any sort of records that the government had on UAP was supposed to go into a national archive, which then can be, searched for, people can go in there, search the documents, and see, what the government knew.
Okay.
But so October 18th is a deadline for those records to be released.
Right. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to mention that we covered Danny Sheehan talking about the first UAPDA in an episode that we did called Foo Fighters, Gary Nolan's Thoughts, UAPDA, Blue Book Hoax, and more back on June 3rd. So you should check that out if you'd like to hear Danny Sheehan talking about that. He even pulls up the document, is like, look, the date is right here. You guys need to be counting down to this. I don't know why everybody doesn't have a countdown for this. So October 18th, big deal. All right, let's move on to November. Now, November 5th is Election Day in the United States, and we obviously don't know who our next president is going to be yet. But whoever they are will have the power to effect disclosure and what info is released and what will stay under lock and key. To quote Matthew Pines, referring to the UAPDA, quote, the next president will essentially preside over the nominations and then review the declassification and disclosure determinations of the review board. Only the president will have essentially the final veto over those determinations. He also mentioned a coup de grace. Who do you think the coup de grace is? Me personally, when I first heard that, and when he made the comment about, you guys know this person, they're always in the news, the first person that came to mind is Trump. I mean, hear me out, because he is somebody that's always in the news before, especially now with the whole assassination attempt. He's in the news even more. He's in the news because of the whole presidential race. I mean, That's just my theory. I could be totally wrong. I could be totally off. But the way he said, if you watch the news, you'll know this person. I mean, the whole freaking world knows who Trump is. Okay. So like, that's just my theory. Some people were throwing out James Fox. Some people were throwing out Tim Burchett. Some people were throwing out Ross Coulthart. But I mean, like us in the UFO community, we know those people, but people outside the UFO community don't know who the hell James Fox is, but everybody around the world knows who Trump is. Okay. So I'm just saying, the November 5th election is something that has the potential to really, really impact disclosure on a big level. Okay, finishing out with 2024 in December, that's when the new UAPDA 2.0 is going to be proposed by the Congress to the Senate. And that, we're still talking about last year's UAPDA, that of course has the potential to kick this ball all the way down the field and get a touchdown. So hopefully that happens. All right, now let's move on to the things that we know about but don't have an anticipated date for. First up, we have the James Fox documentary. Now, Matthew Pine said that we have 2 new documentaries that are coming out. But the question is, are these 2 new documentaries from people we haven't heard of yet? Or is one of them James Fox's and the other one is from somebody we don't know about? So, like, I'm a little bit confused there. He said there's 2 new ones. They're coming from somebody you don't know. So I'm thinking that the James Fox one is in a separate category and there's 3 that we should be anticipating.
Yeah, I don't know. I heard him say there was 2 new people coming out in documentaries.
Oh, 2 new people coming out in documentaries, not 2 new people putting out documentaries. Oh, okay. So maybe I heard it wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
this is in the unknown category. Okay,
Yeah.
so new documentaries, 1 definitely from James Fox, 2 from people potentially we don't know. Let's move on. Another thing he mentions is that more senior military officials are due to come out and do what Carl Nell did and corroborate what David Grush said in last year's UAP hearings. Now, Carl Nell at the SALT conference said he has 0 doubt that this is real. So if more military people above Grush on the same level as Carl Nell or even higher than that come out and say the same thing, holy shnikes.
And that's reminiscence to what Gary Nolan said at the previous year's SALT conference, you know, which somebody asked him what percentage is this true? And he said 100%. So we got 100% true and 0 doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we also have David Grush's op-ed that is still out there lingering around in the air. We should have got that already. He mentioned it at the end of 2023. Was like, yeah, this should be out in like 6 weeks. And it's been a whole 7-8 months now and we still haven't seen it. So that's still up in the air. Plus, he just filed his lawsuit against the sheriff's office that released his medical records. And I don't know how long lawsuits take to come to conclusion.
It could take years.
It could take years.
It could
So
be
yeah,
years.
I just figured I would mention the lawsuit with the op-ed because, you know, Grush is involved in both. Okay. Moving on, we already talked about who the coup de grace could be. Let us know in the comments section below who you think the coup de grace could be. And then last but not least, we have the whistleblowers from the Nimitz Tic Tac incident that are supposed to be coming forward that Kevin Day mentioned. All right, so as you can see, there's still a lot left on the table and many things to look forward to that all equally have the potential to move the needle and be the disclosure game changers that we all need and have been craving for the longest time.
Yeah. You know, I am really excited for what the rest of 2024 has in store for us.
Yeah.
You know,
same.
I'm looking forward to everything that we just talked about.
Same.
You know.
And I mean, like Matthew said, it's, quote, the objective is to increase the number of people that think this is true by a few percentage points every few months. So again, that just goes back to me thinking like, okay, this is literally written down somewhere or typed out on some computer that there's a plan step by step. This is going to happen. This is going to come out. This guy's going to corroborate. This guy's going to back this up. This, you know, like there's a plan and we're living through it. Okay. So while we're talking about the old and new UAPDAs, let's finish off this story with a tweet from D. Dean Johnson that says, UAP Disclosure Act. In November 2023, the Pentagon's Intelligence Office advised congressional negotiators on how to revise the UAP Disclosure Act. Today, for the first time anywhere, I published the Pentagon's proposed rewrite. Subscribe for free. And then an excerpt from that article that he wrote says, quote, In the light of recent statements by the former head of the Pentagon UFO office, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, asserting that the Pentagon Arrow successfully derailed the Schumer Rounds Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Disclosure Act, or UAPDA, in late 2023, I am releasing here a proposed 33-page line-by-line rewrite of the Senate-passed UAPDA that the Pentagon provided to the congressional negotiators during end-stage negotiations in November 2023. This is the first publication of this document anywhere. End quote. Thanks, Dean. If you want to check that out, as always, links are going to be found in the video description box below, along with all the other sources found in this show in the order that they appear. So make sure to check that out.
Yeah. So what I think is different this time around.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So on the last few episodes, I was struggling to find a difference between the 2023 UAPDA and the 2024 UAPDA.
Okay.
And the biggest difference that I was able to find is that Sean Kirkpatrick is no longer the head of Arrow.
Oh my gosh, I remember last week after we finished recording, I was in here editing, he was in the other room. He's like, "Oh my God, I remember." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Sean Patrick ain't here no more." I was like, Sean Kirkpatrick. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what it was." It's like so obvious, but we forgot it.
Yeah. And it's like I did not realize that that Congress sends the Pentagon the proposed, legislation so that they can have, an input on what that legislation says. I mean, it's kind of like, let's say you're supposed to police these groups of people, right? And you say, "Oh, well, here, tell me how you want to be policed, and then we'll police it that way." That's basically what they're doing.
Which is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, I mean, they established Arrow, Congress established that office to go and look for UAP information, and now that very same office is able to dictate, the type of oversight that they want, and it's all underneath the Department of Defense, and it's probably the same people that don't want this information coming out, So I for the life of me can't. It's like I can't process that. I don't know. It's so stupid.
It's kind of asinine, if you ask me.
It is asinine, and that's kind of what happened to the 2023 UAPDA. It all makes sense now. I mean, you have third-party contractors, aerospace defense contractors having a say, in what this legislation says. They're paying lots of money to certain people to make sure that certain language gets out of the bill, right?
Mike and Mike. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
And the same thing with Arrow and Sean Kirkpatrick, So yeah, it's like the biggest change between 2023 and now 2024 is that Sean Kirkpatrick isn't there. So hopefully we have a little bit, we'll have a little better of a chance of this legislation getting passed, especially if the objectives that were set by Matthew Pines turn out to be true.
Right.
So yeah, anyway, I'm looking forward to it. Let us know what you guys think.
Yeah. So basically, long story short, Matthew Pines said a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that we have to look forward to. So I hope that my little visual tool aided you in some way, shape, or form. But anyways.
Up next, we have a new UK crop circle sighting. Crop circles don't only happen in movies like Signs. They happen in real life in real fields all over the world. Let's take a look at the most recent one.
On Twitter, Karen Alexander said, "Photos from our flight yesterday. Crop circle at Stoke Charity, Hants. Reported 28th July, 2024. 220 feet approximately. See more photos and information using the link above." And by clicking that link and going to the website called Temporary Temples, we can learn more details. The circle was first reported on the 28th July 2024 in a field of wheat near Stoke Charity in Hampshire between Sutton Scotney and Micheldever. I'm probably butchering these names, forgive me. It measures approximately 220 feet in diameter. There is a history of crop circles in this area, especially in recent years. This crop circle is a 6-fold hexagonal design. The design is picked from an isometric grid of equilateral triangles to create the highly original design. All right, let's learn some more. In case you're unfamiliar with the crop circle phenomena, here's some quick facts from the Temporary Temples website. First up, what are crop circles? Crop circles are geometric patterns that appear mysteriously in crop fields. The crop is not cut, but is usually laid flat and most often swirled into an attractive floor pattern. Most patterns appear in cereal crops such as wheat and barley, but circles have been known to occur in lesser numbers in oilseed rape, maize, linseed, grass, and even borage, to name a few. I don't even know if I said that right, but that's okay. In the U.S., many circles appear in soya, as it is grown prevalently in that part of the world. How large are the crop circles? Crop circles can range in size from only a few feet across to several hundred feet in diameter. How long has this been going on? There is an ongoing debate between researchers as to the longevity of the phenomenon. Essentially, two camps exist within the debate. Those who believe that the crop circle phenomenon is a relatively modern occurrence beginning in the mid-1970s, and those that believe that there are reports going back to the beginning of the century and even earlier. The first circle photographed or documented in the UK was in 1976. However, many farmers report crop circles in their fields going back considerably further than this date. What makes the crop circles and what do they mean? There are many theories about who or what makes the crop circles. Whirlwinds, earth energies, extraterrestrials, and human hoaxers, to name but a few. What makes the crop circle subject so fascinating is that anyone and everyone can take part in the search for answers. There has been some very interesting scientific work carried out on the crop and soils from the circles, which should be investigated by all those with an interest in the phenomenon. Much the same goes for the ultimate meaning behind the designs. There has been some fascinating research into the geometry and mathematics of the crop circle designs and shapes, which suggests that the designs are not arbitrary or meaningless, but quite the opposite. People have connected the circles to subjects as diverse as star constellations and quantum physics, to alchemy and spirituality. Some of the most fascinating research is concerned with shape and vibration, or semantics, and the collective unconscious. Are you interested in visiting any crop circles? Is that even allowed? Yes. There are farmers who will allow the researchers and the public on their land to visit the circles. Please only enter a circle if you have permission from the farmer. Don't want to get no trespassing charges, people. Got to be careful. Anyways, that's it.
All right, so there's some people that question the validity or authenticity of crop circles. Others are full-on believers. What I present to you now, though, are facts regarding crop circles that may help you sniff out the real from the faux.
All right, so after discovering this crop circle online, I quickly asked my fellow UAP Society mod, Smart Dog, what he thought of it, because basically he's kind of like the crop circle go-to of the group. And he said, boots on the ground reporting it's man-made. To which I asked him, how sure are you that it's fake, and what is that opinion based on? He said that his, quote, source actually walks the ground and looks at various things. There are no 100% surefire single tells. You have to use a combination of things that may or may not be present. Looking at the nodes is a good sign. Warped, burnt, and bent nodes on still living plants is a sign of authenticity. Human-made formations visibly damage the stalks. Another good sign is when a ghost circle appears. That is when the same formation appears the following year as darker or lighter in the crop. But you have to wait a year. With authentic formations, there is usually magnetic local anomalies as well as electrical device malfunctions and a lot of batteries draining fast. Thought that was really interesting information. So I asked him if it was cool if I could share that with you guys and quote him. He said, sure, but that I had to include that he's merely expressing an opinion in search for the truth. So I think that's what we're all doing. He said, the thing that rarely is talked about is the crop that the formation occurs in. Some crops are easier than others. Rapeseed is notoriously messy and seldom used by crop artists. Heard from the artists themselves regarding crop type selection for a particular design. Very interesting information. So thank you, Smart Dog, for dropping that wisdom on us. I had already known about the bent nodes aspect of all of this, but the ghost circle concept was totally new to me. I didn't realize that you could still see the design in the new growth of the crop, even when the damaged part of the plant gets harvested.
Looking at this picture, it says that in some cases, a ghost crop circle has kept reappearing for up to 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, me neither. That would not happen if it was just some dudes with 2x4s stomping through the fields making these things. You know, like, which is, you know, that's one of the main skeptics' points of view, is that most crop circles, if not all, are made by people, you know, with 2x4s and long strings going around in circles making these designs. Right. So if if they're reappearing in the new crop, you know, that means that there is some other effect on the soil
Right.
You know, something affected the soil in just the right way to make it appear, to make the crop look different
Yeah.
than the other, you know, crop that's grown in the unaffected soil, right? So yeah, that would mean that design or that crop circle from before was probably real.
I mean, if you like Smart Dog taught us, if you look at the nodes of where the plant is bent, it's not only the fact that the nodes are bent, but then there's also axial buds at the base that all happen to be on the same side. So like if the bud is on this side, the plant is bending that way.
Okay.
And it's consistent with all these different samples that they've taken. So how are they all like the same like that? Also, like you were saying just a second ago, there's got to be some kind of like residual something in that area in order for that to keep happening for years after the fact.
Yeah.
I mean, if this was done by human beings with wood or strings or whatever, just stomping around in fields trying to make some kind of design, the stalks of the plants are going to be damaged differently.
Right.
And B, once you cut those crops that are damaged, the following plants are going to grow normally. But with ghost crop circles, that's not the case. They harvest these crops, and then for the following years, you can still see the pattern within the field. So, I mean, something had to have happened.
And they're not saying that the new growth, the new crop, is bent over anymore. What they're saying is the plant is physically different from all the others, and that's how you can tell.
Right.
You know? Yeah. So, I mean, it's very interesting.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Some people, as soon as they hear crop circles, they're like, "Nope, I don't believe this." La 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 la. I'm not listening to you.
You know, because I remember
some things to learn.
I don't remember exactly when I watched this documentary. It was sometime either in the late 90s or very early 2000s. I was still a teenager.
Okay.
And I remember watching this on TV. They basically showed how two men with 2x4s and some rope can go out and actually make a full-on fledged interesting crop circle.
Okay.
You know, and ever since that came out.
Are they intricate or are they very basic?
No, these ones were intricate.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
They were very symmetrical, very intricate. But ever since that came out, you know, that's been the consensus about what crop circles are. You know, it's like everybody's like, oh yeah, you know, we know how that's done. It's just a couple guys with 2x4s or whatever.
Right,
you know,
right.
Going around stomping the crop over, you know, when they're not supposed to be, you know, causing a stir. But this whole ghost circle thing is very interesting,
Yeah,
you know,
very.
and I would like to get some more information on that for sure. You know, if you are a crop circle enthusiast, you know, make sure to join the UAP Society Discord server and share with the community what you think. An invite link can be found in the description box below.
And just to close off this story, I'm going to throw up a picture here real quick. One image shows what aliens do on Earth, and the other image shows what humans do on the moon or Mars. I can't remember because I'm not looking at it right now, but basically you'll see the difference. All right. And then last but not least, Steven Spielberg's upcoming UFO film, The Dish. A tweet from Skyfire News says, Steven Spielberg's upcoming UFO film is to be titled The Dish, and Josh O'Connor has joined the cast.
In addition to that, an excerpt from that article by World Real says, Universal Pictures had announced that Spielberg's film will open in theaters on May 15th, 2026. It's unclear what the project, which the studio described as a new original event film, is about, though it was already reported to be a UFO film. Additionally, Production Weekly is reporting that Spielberg's film has added Josh O'Connor to its cast, which already included Emily Blunt. Described as a two-hander, Spielberg's film is set to commence production February 2025 in New Jersey and Atlanta, Georgia. Spielberg, 77, who is set to direct based on his own original idea. With a filmography that spans 6 decades and more than 40 films, Spielberg's landmark career has been that rarest of beasts, mixing commercial success with resounding artistic merits. His most notable work includes Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which that's one of my favorites, Schindler's List, E.T., and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So I didn't know who Josh O'Connor was, but Emily Blunt has been in A Quiet Place 1 and 2, Oppenheimer, and Edge of Tomorrow, which I am familiar with.
Yeah, I really like Edge of Tomorrow. That was a good movie. That was a good concept, you know. It was kind of like Groundhog Day, you know, but it had Tom Cruise in it.
Oh, yeah. That was the one where they kept like shooting back to that
Reliving
point
the same day,
right?
right?
Yeah. Oh, I remember that one,
Until they could outsmart the alien invaders who were, you know, causing the time rift. You know?
Okay, so
Anyway.
she's used to acting involving aliens, which is cool.
Yeah.
And anything that Spielberg does, I mean, I'm there for it because, like, you know, like we just said, he's been doing this for. Let's see.
And you know, I think Steven Spielberg is one of the people that's possibly really in the know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he did Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know, which had the French scientist in it who is supposed to be Jacques Vallée. You know, and I don't know if a lot of people realize this or not, but J. Allen Hynek himself was made a cameo in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
So what was he whispering in Spielberg's ear during the production of that movie, or maybe even prior, that affected how that movie was portrayed?
Right.
Again, that goes back to what we were talking to with the reptilian story about how sometimes they just slip things in the media to get everybody like accustomed to the idea.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I would not be surprised one bit.
If what?
I would not be surprised at all if, you know, some of these movies and films that have come out under the guise of science fiction, you know, actually
have a lot of truth to them.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they might have more things rooted in truth than they do in science fiction, you know, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know, I don't know.
Right.
It's very interesting.
It's called soft disclosure.
Yeah.
There's a term for it. It's called soft disclosure. It's where they slip things in there that may seem like sci-fi or out there wild concepts, but really they're things that may or may not already be happening, and they're just trying to like flex without telling you they're flexing.
Right.
Yeah, basically. All right. So if you would like to check that out for yourself, as always, the link to this tweet and article, along with all the other sources featured in this show, can be found in the video description box below in the order that they appear. So make sure to check that out. And then in the comment section, make sure to let us know what your favorite soft disclosure movie or TV show or song even is. I'd be interested to hear what kind of curated list you guys give us to go off of.
Yeah.
And that concludes this week's UAP Society's weekly UAP and UFO news show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. And while you're here, please do us a favor and smash that like button, click subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word. Let's raise the collective consciousness together in unity.
Much love.
Much love. Peace and namaste.